and welcome to the DME podcast, brought to you by DME, the podcast booking platform. Whether you're a podcaster or an aspiring guest, the DME app is a perfect platform for you to get booked and manage your podcast bookings. I'm your host, Sukh Hayre, the founder of DME, and on this podcast we'll be discussing the latest news and views in tech, the ins and outs of entrepreneurship, and even dipping our toes into the adrenaline-filled world of mixed martial arts. In this week's podcast, I'm joined by the truly inspirational Paul Cadman. Paul is a Birmingham-based entrepreneur, philanthropist, and professor of entrepreneurship and leadership. Paul's story is a fascinating one. He grew up in Bordesley Green, left school with no qualifications, struggled with dyslexia, and went on to build a career that spanned the fire service, business growth, mergers and acquisitions, sports, community work, and founding of the 1000 Trades Group. We talk about Birmingham, entrepreneurship, resilience, failure, sport, leadership, and why Paul believes Birmingham should stop calling itself the second city and start recognising itself as second to nobody. In this conversation, we explore ambition, giving back, and what it truly means to build businesses and communities with purpose. This is a truly great podcast, so please enjoy Paul Cadman. Paul Cadman, welcome to the DME podcast.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for having me.
Well, you're hosting me, so it's thank you to you and thank you for your patience because I know I'm late, so apologies for that ahead of time.
It's totally fine.
But just for our listeners who aren't aware, could you explain a little bit about your background? And we're currently here in the offices of 1000 Trades Group, as you were just explaining before the start of the podcast. It's so much more than just one business, isn't it? So could you just explain a little bit about your own background and what we do here at the 1000 Trades Group?
So I think starting very early, so my background is pretty humble background, born in a back-to-back house in Bordesley Green. You know, or there was 4 kids. We had sort of 2 bedrooms and literally in the shadow of Birmingham City Football Club, that kind of thing. Across the road was a factory that bellowed out pollution. We all ended up with bad chest, bad skin and all this sort of stuff. And we played in a scrapyard. Left school. School was really challenging for me. I left school with no qualifications at all. I couldn't read or write, and bit of a sad case really. Obviously done quite well now. So life was a bit of a challenge, but I worked in the markets and sort of about 12 years old, I was working 10 hours a day kind of thing in the market as a Barrow boy in the old Birmingham market, which is probably the most inspirational place where you learn to meet people, learn to connect, understand what the terminology, diversity is and inclusivity and stuff like that. Because everybody just had a commonality. Nobody had anything and everybody there.
So every Saturday morning, my mum would drag me on the bus for 10 pence from Handsworth into Bullring Market. She used to love that place.
So the old indoor market.
The old indoor market. Yeah,
yes, across the road from there. So that's where I worked for years and years.
Yeah, I remember going as about 8, 9 years old because my dad was working Saturday morning, so she needed someone to carry the bags.
The doors used to open, and it was like a jumble sale. There was hundreds and hundreds of people that used to come in and buy everything and all that sort of stuff. Kind of before the days of supermarkets. So I was there, kind of like the 70s, late 70s, and things like that.
Yeah. So I'm talking kind of mid to late 80s.
Yeah, so I was there then. yeah, that kind of thing.
But I think that just encapsulated it, probably a story that's repeated in kind of the London market, etc. as well. But that, I remember it now, encapsulated what Birmingham was.
Yeah, it was.
And my reward for taking it would be the donuts at the top of the ramp.
Yeah, so Dunkin' Donuts. So I still go to the market now Saturdays and to do that. So I was working in the market, failed school education and things like that. And I realised that education failed me. I didn't fail education to that. And it was the days when there was corporal punishment and things like that. So I'd just get caned every day. So they asked me to stand up and recite the times tables. So I learned very quickly to memorise them. And I couldn't read them, but I'd memorise them. So I had this strategic thinking. I'd be miles ahead of everybody else. So they'll stand up, tell me the 2 times table, but actually I'd got 3, 4, 5, 6 in my head. Yeah. So I could recite these. So very strategic, very thinking and stuff like that. We'll probably come back onto that.
Yeah.
Left that. Went into the market. One of the first qualifications I had was we all used to cook, so we'd be in the kitchen and everybody would be involved in prepping the food to do that. So I had a little bit of a flair for cooking. So I turned up University College, Birmingham, UCB, because I wanted to be a chef. I had an aspirations to be a chef. And turned up there one day because somebody said, oh, they're taking people on. Hadn't got the basic qualifications, hadn't got the money to pay for the course, and said, can I have a course? And they said, well, no, you don't fit the criteria. But they invited me back a week later, and they gave me an opportunity and a bursary, paid for it, and I trained as a chef, qualified as a, didn't qualify, but interestingly, the Glimpanels and the other Michelin star chefs around the city, none of them did, but they all went through there to that kind of thing. Went off, and I was very good at sport, martial arts and boxing and things like that. And my dad, there's a famous story, my dad dragging me up the street after I'd been expelled from school on the third or fourth time, and he threw me into this boxing gym, and everybody was like, don't teach him to fight, goodness sake. I became a British champion in what we term as mixed martial arts now. I then started playing rugby, very fit. A fire service officer saw me play rugby, but I applied to go into the fire service. Knew well that I'd smashed the physical, but struggled with the academic.
Yeah.
Scraped in because I could play rugby, ended up in the fire service. I spent 20 years in the fire service, came out in 2005, but let's pause it there.
That's 20 years ago, and you've kind of lived a whole life there already. But I'm fascinated to hear about the mixed martial arts side of things, because it is a bit of a passion of mine. So when you were doing mixed martial arts, it probably wasn't even mixed martial arts, was it?
No, it wasn't. So they used to call it British All-Star. So I was bizarrely, and it gets a little bit embarrassing there because like dads or mums introduce me to their kids and they go, oh, you'd retired before I'd even was born. So you don't really talk about it too much now. So I was British champion 1987.
Oh, wow.
That kind of stuff. So a long time ago. But sport, I mean, the thing to take out of it, I still talk to the people I train with, used to fight with. They're still close people. You have a mindset, don't you? Of deliverance, sport, fitness, and excellence. You can't be beaten. You just keep pushing forward. So that's
I mean, my close friend who's just got a gym down the road, Fearless MMA, who's been on the podcast previously.
Okay.
I was with him when he first started, just out of a couple of factory units down in Handsworth. And now he's obviously training UFC champions.
Amazing.
But I think they're bread and butter. And the change, I've been going there for like 10, 15 years or whatever. The change you see is because you get kids coming in there. You get the young classes from 5 years old. But when we first started, there were 15, 16 year olds who were kind of, a little bit rebellious and weren't the best at school. But they found a home in the gym.
Yeah, that's right.
They found a home to do what they could do, and they were fantastic in the gym because they had the work ethic. Taught them discipline and teach them so much. I mean, you just go. So what time now? 6 o'clock. There'll be kids classes in there, and you'll see some of these kids who probably aren't achieving anything else from an academic perspective, but they're amazing in that gym, and the confidence levels over a few weeks just goes through the roof.
And that's what it did for me, and that's why I understand sport and I support sport all across the city. We do things. There's a space in sport for everybody.
I've told too many personal stories, but I'm involved in kids football. My daughter plays and I manage a Sunday team as well. And you just see the progression that some kids can make.
Okay.
Some of them treat it as an extension of their school life, which can get a bit challenging for a wannabe parent coach. But some of them actually take on board what you do, and they kind of advance so much and they grow up really quickly and mature.
Yeah. So I'm chairman of Birmingham Youth Sports Academy, BYSA.
Yeah.
So we have 450 to 600 kids a week playing grassroots sports, and it's around Small Heath. Aston, Bordesley Green and everything else like that, the inner city challenged areas. Our home now is the Acres. Last week, we were 25 years old. So there's thousands of kids who have gone through that, and it's a privilege to support and work with these kids. We've got such strong ethics. We think we've got ethics, strong ethics, and all of these kids come from nowhere. They don't have kit, so we buy them kit. So everybody looks the same, everybody dresses the same. But everybody that comes to sports have to have a mentoring classroom session. Right. So we push them into classroom. And now, because we're 25 years old, a generation is 20 years. So we're 5 years into a second generation. So the moms, dads now bring their own kids. Yeah. And the pilots, the engineers, the military, the doctors, the surgeons, and everything that's come through us who are actually saying, and I'm not stealing the thunder of some of the people who've been around, the Anwars and the Riazis of the world, who've done it since day dot, have changed direction for hundreds and hundreds of kids to go into the right direction. So we're both aligned there, and sport's fantastic. So I sit on the board of Birmingham City Football Club, and I'm a non-exec, setting the foundation, and kind of this year we've interacted with about 60,000 people. So that direction of travel, so across the city and everything else like that, there's a few other things that we can talk about. Reminded, we're on question or point two. So sorry, sir.
I told you it was very conversationalist, though. We can
Yeah,
go over everyone. But okay, so let's go back to 2005. And so you're training as a chef and haven't qualified. So how do you start this entrepreneurial journey from there?
Well, 2005. Okay, so I went to the College of Food. The College of Food took me on board, and I worked harder than everybody else, and I worked day and night and all that sort of stuff. I ended up at the Swallow Hotel, ended up in the fire service, and this is the dates are slightly wrong. So it was 1987. I ended up in the fire service. Okay, so 87 up to I've lost my track. 2005. Where am I? Yeah. Dyslexia running right. So 2005, it was 20 years service, and it was kind of, what am I doing? When am I going? I've got another 10 years to go before I get my pension. I've done 30 years service, and I'm kind of close to 50 and all that sort of stuff, but I'd lost my way a bit. And it was a privilege to serve in the fire service, and it was the most incredible times. Seeing the humans being pushed to the elements, seeing that, children and everything else like that, and death and destruction has a toll on you, but also the benefits of being around and seeing a rescue or seeing something, saving people's lives is just aspirational. Tell you what's funny when you talk about the fire service is that you walk into a pub and somebody goes, "All right, how you doing? What do you do?" And then you go, "Oh, I'm a fireman, I'm a firefighter." And they go, "Let me buy you a drink." That kind of stuff. So the recognition of general and stuff, the public, is amazing. So utmost respect for these people. At the same time, I was continuing, so I was doing 3 or 4 different activities. I've always done other businesses, worked and things like that. So this entrepreneurial flair was started from day dot, from doing bizarre things like, 10, 12 years old, painting, making garden gnomes and selling them to neighbours and doing all this sort of stuff. There's other things we used to do to earn money and that kind of stuff, but it was like building bikes and all that kind of stuff and doing everything to earn a living, to earn a crust. But go on.
No, I was going to say that's something. It's a journey. I think it's a common trait that you hear with the entrepreneurs. It's that the minds are always active.
Yeah,
they never sit still, and they always have to keep busy. I kind of imagine there's a period in your life where you kind of sit there going, "What am I doing next?"
So I sleep about 4 hours a night maximum, and I'm awake. So you heard some of my colleagues talk about me emailing, and I think you said I was emailing you at 3 o'clock in the morning. 2:30 in the morning, I'm awake. I'm on my laptop. I'm thinking, and I'm even listening to podcasts, and I'll be listening to some of your podcasts. My mind is active and it's focused and it's working. Because I'm a heavily dyslexic, my brain slightly works in a different way. So my brain sort of works like a bit of a filing cabinet. So I can open the drawer, I can take something out, I can look at it, I can push it to the side and it flies around in my head. Then I can go to bed with a problem and I can wake up with a solution. Then I can take that, I can put it back in the drawer, open the drawer. But what I can do is have a drawer open, a few drawers open with loads of different things flying around my head. So simultaneously I can think about things to that. So when we get into business, we've got 8 businesses in our group. We've got 70, 80 people working for us, all kinds of different people doing completely different things. But I kind of know where everybody is, what everybody's doing. Not in a controlling way, because it's just, it works. That's how my mind works and things like that.
So perfect little segue then. Take us on to kind of the group as it sits at the moment. How have you developed from where you were and leaving the fire service and having all these ideas in your head and doing various businesses? How have you grown from there, and what's the common thread that exists throughout all these businesses?
During the fire service, it was a lot of risk management through health safety, fire safety, obviously, and various different things like that. And corporate manslaughter came out, and all company directors thought if it went wrong, they were all going to end up in jail and things like that. Theoretically, that's correct. But some certain organisations panicked a little bit, and there was a company called the Bibby Group, who were looking for a middle manager that had a bit of a background that could advise them. And these guys were doing sort of saturation diving in the North Sea, had construction, ships and various different things, logistics. So they had, hundreds and hundreds of lorries moving stuff around. So various moving parts where they could go wrong. So I went into that business as sort of middle level, and then ended up as senior. So ended up as a board member and looking at their mergers, acquisitions. So it was getting involved in various different things like that. Lost track a little bit then. Where was we going?
No, it was just how we built to the
So, sorry. So went into the Bibby Group, worked for them for nearly 5 years, got as senior as I could do, and then it was the Bibby family and things like that. So I was a little bit lost, and this is working for somebody. The next thing was the car design. So I went into a company called Futura in Oldbury, and they worked with Jaguar Land Rover, and they created prototype vehicles. So if you see clay cars, prototype clay cars and things like that, we did that. And we'd create running prototype vehicles that might be £1 million, £1.5 million. And we did that. This business sat at about 16, 18 million. So I went in as a consultant after I left Bibby Group because I didn't really know where I wanted to go, but I knew that I didn't want to stay in there. I'd got this thing where I'd spent 20 years in the fire service, and I thought, I don't want to do that again. I want to do segments of 5 or, maximum 10 years, and that's it. So I want to do other things. So I went fire service to risk management, buying businesses, construction, into sort of, we bought some burial sites, all kinds of different things, to growing businesses, the mergers and acquisitions, into prototype vehicles, but complex project management. So my mind as it runs, way, way ahead of everybody else, problem solving, worked really well in this industry. So we took the business 16, 18 million up, not quite 50 million in about 4 or 5 years. And we created, but I reached, like LinkedIn, just reached out to all the OEMs, the chief executives, the car designers, stuff, and said, hey, this is who we are, we want to work with you. So the importance of networking actually came from the market.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. It's the same skill that stays with you throughout. So I reached out to all these people. We took it up to, as I said, close to 50 million. But some of the people we work with have stayed pals, friends. So the guy, Frank Stephenson, who designed the P1, he designed the Modern Mini and the X5, the Fiat 500, Save Fiat, and all kinds of different things. So there's a whole podcast on him. He's a close friend. I speak to him quite often and various different things like that. So we took this business, did really, really well, lasted for about 5 years. One of the projects I worked on, and you can Google this, is called Lilium Flying Car. So it's an autonomous flying car. So I went to Germany and we created a studio and we created this flying car. Another podcast because it's hilarious. Started off brown paper and string kind of mindset, and now it's flying 300 to 500 miles, that kind of thing. So you order it via an app, and this thing, autonomous vehicle, lands the top of a car park, probably next door. You jump in it and you go, right, got to go to London, got to go to Paris, and it'll take you straight there. No pilots. Anyway, back into that. So from one business to the other, but when I'd worked at Futura, at the end of Futura, this is 10 years after the fire service, I'm not going to work for anybody else. I'm fed up of making everybody else loads of money, and their drivers and their values don't align with mine.
Yeah.
So it's all about money. It's all about me, what I can do, buy a bigger car, bigger house, and all of that. That doesn't align with me. So it was around supporting people, working with people, and trying to find out my direction of where I wanted to go, really. So that's kind of where I've ended up. There's been a number of different jobs and positions, and you can Google it. You can look at my LinkedIn and see where I've been, but it's gone from one extreme to another. 1,000 trades group.
Yeah.
Okay. So the group that we've got today is only a year or so old, but some of the businesses have been going 20 odd years. So there's various different businesses there. The 1,000 trades was available, in the domain name, and obviously the city being a city of 1,000 trades. I'm ultimately proud of being a Brummie, where I come from and things like that. So we've taken that domain name, and all of the businesses work and support other businesses make things happen. What's interesting about the group is that everything we do has to have a third sector mindset. Everything we do, every opportunity, every project to that. You'll see if you look at sort of our LinkedIn and things like that, we constantly raise money for different charities and things like that, and that needs to be hundreds of thousands a year. We don't rest on our roles. We don't talk about what we do, and I'm not keen to do that. I'll post quite a lot on social media, LinkedIn. That's leadership thought pieces and stuff like that. I don't say, look at us, this is what we've done, because that's not appropriate and that's not where we are, and we don't need to do that.
Is that very much a Brummie ethic? We don't shout too loudly.
Yeah, we do, and I have a bit of an issue with this. And I don't know whether you picked up on this, because I challenge everybody, and I'm very proud of being a Birmingham, being Mr. Birmingham previously, so Brummie of the Year and various different accolades is incredible. So I have this mindset of, we're not the second city, we're second to nobody. You don't sit there and compare yourself and go, oh, I'm second best to this person, this job, this car, this whatever. You don't say to your sons or your daughters in the morning as they go to school, don't forget you're in the second city, don't forget you're second best to anybody. You never do that. Why are we? Because London isn't the first city. London is a load of boroughs, and they're completely different to us. We are not compared to anybody else. We're totally unique. What we do, we set the world alight. The Industrial Revolution started here, and this city and across the region. And what we do is incredible. Nobel Prize winners, the things we've invented, the things that we've given back to the world. So you can't compare us to anybody. We are totally unique. So when anybody from the likes of some of the politicians and some of the people, I've challenged Prime Minister in the past, and I've challenged other people, we're not the second city. We're totally unique. You'll notice that Tom Wagner, who's bought Birmingham City and the Knighthead, the sports quarter that we can talk about, 100 acres for that is going to reshape the city, the skyline of the city. Me being involved in that, because I want to do that for Birmingham to reshape the city. It's $5 billion. That's going to impact every household in the city. Every household in the city is going to benefit positively financially to do that.
I did see the Birmingham City Stadium mock-ups that were just released.
Oh, a day or two.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So it did look fantastic.
Yeah.
Not a blues for myself, but I was.
But you're a city of, you're a fan of the city of Birmingham.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been banging Birmingham's drum every second I get.
Amazing.
The first time I learned that Industrial Revolution and about Soho House, where Matthew Bolton, James Watt, and Rupert. What was the third one? Rupert someone. When Rupert Murdoch, not Murdoch, Matthew Murdoch. Can't remember his name. Murdoch. Anyway, they used to meet on the Lunar Society at Soho. I was like, I'm literally.
Do you know the Lunar Society still exists?
Does it?
Yeah, so I'm a fellow of the Lunar Society, and it's still going on in Birmingham, and these people are still meeting. And they used to, Lunar Society underneath the lunar light, wasn't it? Because it was brighter. And that's how they used to meet. So they used to meet and talk, industrialists, and just the things they talk about, we're still talking about, although it's a few hundred years later, and it's still people. So the Lunar Society is still working there.
I mean, literally, I grew up
Amazing.
Yeah. So I was like, cool. I first learned that Industrial Revolution started in Birmingham, and it started right at the top of the road. I was like, I'm there every day.
Incredible. Yeah.
So everywhere I've gone in the world, not very many places, but I've always gone to go, hey, we're the centre of it all.
It's a rich history of what we've done and what we've created, the impact across the world, the globe. It's immeasurable.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other ones I coached on quite when it comes to talking politics or economics, I'm very much a small government guy, and these arguments that you need governments to build infrastructure or whatever. I said, well, I'll point to Birmingham. I thought, well, Birmingham's famous for having more miles of canal than Venice.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, they're all privately funded, all built by private people.
Absolutely right. Yeah, we brought the water down from the Eland Valley to because we didn't have enough water here, and so they went, all right, how do we resolve this problem? We'll do that. We'll dig it. We'll bring it down. More waterways than the Venice is a factual point. But there used to be more trees than people in the city, so there's over 1 million trees in the city. So our green spaces are incredibly important. 500 odd green spaces and things like that. The lungs of the city is so important. It's fascinating to do that. But
yeah, and I think it's. As a city, we probably need to shout about ourselves a bit more. You're right. We shouldn't be saying
we don't walk with arrogance.
None.
We walk with confidence.
Yeah, very much so. It's like a love letter to the city, this podcast, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so I think we've got one of the questions I had for you was how has Birmingham shaped you? But I think we've just kind of answered that already.
Yeah.
So moving on a little bit. A lot of the focus of this podcast and kind of my own background is in tech and innovation. How are you seeing Birmingham play a role in the kind of tech innovations that are happening? Are we there at all? Are we in the conversation?
So we launched Birmingham Tech. So there was a few of us sat in a pub a few years ago and went, the world of tech moves on. What are we doing? What are we doing in Birmingham? Let's launch Birmingham Tech. So I think we had about 500 quid between us. We went around the city, knocking on everybody's door going, got an idea, we want to launch Birmingham Tech. And everybody went, all right, what's it look like? We have some space. Can we do this? Can we do that? We launched Birmingham Tech a number of years ago. I don't know how long. And now it's grown and it's globally recognised and things like that. And the tech centre of where we are is interesting. The life sciences is interesting, med tech, health tech and things like that. Some of the things that are being created and stuff like that. Where are we? We're up there. We're making a difference and we're making an impact. And what's interesting is the global interest in us of what goes on in the Midlands and everything else like that. So you look at Birmingham Tech, West Midlands Tech, the commission and all that sort of stuff. And it's a resource of information, and advice. So we're there. We're doing some good stuff. Some of the things that goes on in academia and everything else like that is eye-watering. And that's probably another podcast around tech.
I love it. It's amazing. We've got so many resources at our disposal.
Yeah.
We've got the history of the Industrial Revolution and the innovations and the tech that we gave to the world then. Right. I think I've got a few friends who are in the financial services business and fintech area. And they're based in Birmingham and they're kind of building a network here and kind of building their businesses here.
You look at the finance quarter, financial sector of what we've got. Birmingham's got this quarter thing, hasn't it? We're trying to create a life sciences quarter.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff. And that's going to go from the UOB at the background all the way up to Five Ways Island to that whole quarter, the hundreds and hundreds of businesses that you start Googling what's going on. Cancer vaccines in Birmingham and all kinds of different stuff on your doorstep, and you don't realise what's happening, the binding site and everything. It's incredible what we're giving. And UOB, as I mentioned before, have just won a Nobel Prize and everything else like that. That's one of 8 that they've won. Nobody knows about it. This kind of stuff. The press aren't interested. So about a year ago, and counteracting the clickbait arguments as well, we launched West Midlands News. Now, this isn't a pitch for it, but this is a point of, it's not clickbait and it's not negativity, self-press. And all we do is showcase. We talk about what's going on in the world, what's going on in Birmingham, what's going on in the Midlands. But it's the positive spin on it. And we talk positively about what's happening. When they won a Nobel Prize, they sent the press releases out. Nobody was interested. None of the press networks run the story about Birmingham UOB winning a Nobel Prize. Outrageous.
First time I've heard of it as well. So yeah, there you go. You should be better tapped in. So yeah, I need to subscribe to your West Midlands magazine as well.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Certainly. So obviously, coming on to the great things we're doing as a city, but obviously, above all that, kind of sits the community and leadership in the city, and it's gone through a tumultuous time over the last decade plus. We've seen, if anybody's on the listeners to our podcast have been around the Birmingham area for 10, 15 years, it's pretty much been a building site. The centre has, but we are seeing the fruits of that construction coming on, and we are building. I think we had the big Birmingham build plan. I can't remember who's the leader of the council.
So you had Richard Parker,
and
then we had Birmingham City Council, didn't we? So it's a growth company, and then you've got the combined authority. You've got Birmingham City Council, and you've got some national things. I mean, where we're sitting now in the Jewellery Quarter, if I look out that window, you're looking at the Octagon, which is the largest octagon-shaped building in Europe. Didn't know there was a challenge for that. And if you look through that window, you've got Telecom Tower. This kind of stuff. So you look at what's happening here. You look at where UCB is. So that building across the road is owned by UCB to the growth sector there. You look at where UCB is, BCU and all that kind of stuff. That's just the academic. 140,000 students in there with all of the buildings that are spinning up. Then you look at the BHIC, which is down by the QE. So the QE itself is immense.
It's a city in itself, isn't it?
It's incredible when you get to know the people there. And the BHIC building with hundreds of start-up businesses in life sciences and things like that. It's eye-watering that something that's going on. And then, as we talked about, I'm not banging a drum about Birmingham City Football Club, but Knighthead investment, $5 billion. It's the second largest infrastructural investment in the UK. And that's going to be up that, the top of the chart for many, many years. $5 billion investment. The city is growing and will continue to grow.
Yeah. I think one of the other big selling points of Birmingham is we've got one of the youngest populations in Europe.
Yeah, so they talked about 35 and it's
yeah.
under 30 now.
Yeah.
So it seems to be every time we don't have newspapers anymore. Every time I log on, it's dropping down. It's 27, 26, and I'm thinking, blimey, in my lifetime, are we going to be under 15 years? You know, that kind of stuff, but we'll see where that goes. Yeah,
We're just getting older, Paul, that's all it is.
yeah, there is that. There is that.
Okay, so not to just be conscious of your time a little bit then.
Yeah.
If you've got advice for kind of inspiring entrepreneurs, some like the younger cohort within the city who are looking to embark on their own entrepreneurial journeys, what would kind of be the basic 1 or 2 lessons that you kind of reach out to them and go, so whatever you do, always have this in mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's celebrate failure, isn't it? So I'm supposedly successful. People talk to me as that entrepreneur, professor of entrepreneurship, leadership, and things like that, about being successful and stuff like that. I'm the type of person as an entrepreneur that's never really satisfied. Can do better, could do more, can go further, can give more back.
Yeah.
To never lose that, to have aspirations, to sit there and go, you know, I'm working for this company. Actually, what's it take to own this company? So just do not stop. Have aspirations that are sky high and to deliver against that. But have a planning in mind of where you want to end as a stepping stone, not as an ending point. And the other thing is celebrate failure, because the more you fail, the more you become resilient and the more that you're going to push forward and you're going to keep going. You know, it's that, it's stoicism and things like that. Pressure is privilege and things like that. The more you pressure you have, take it as a privilege and flip it.
Yeah, perfect advice there. I mean, it's got me back to another question though, because there's thinking back into the politics realm, unfortunately, which I can never get away from. First time we've met, but you're truly inspirational story. I think you speak well. Have you ever encountered maybe or contemplated going into politics yourself?
So I've been asked through the years to go into politics. All the parties have asked me. So I started, my political mindset was in the fire service. I didn't care about politics prior to joining the fire service. And day 2, you're told to join the union, and you have to join the fire brigade union. You're told to sign up for it, and you pay a couple of pounds a month for this. And you go, oh, okay. And then there you say, I don't want to be in a union. You can't say that because everybody, 100% of the fire service were in unions. So then I went through the training because they paid for your health and safety training, all your different training. So I did all the qualifications and ended up as a trade union rep and was very much labour. As you're younger, you laboured and things like that. Then I came out and started working. So you drift into Conservatives, what the Conservatives say and that. So I've gone through the whole political chain, you know, and I've looked at prime ministers that led us into war, that really should be tried for war crimes and various different things. And I've looked at Margaret Thatcher and taken on board some of the things that she says. She's been a role model, you know, and you look at Winston Churchill, what he did and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't fit today because some of the things he did, you know, today would be considered as racism and things like that. But stepping aside from the man who just took on the world and went, we can do this. Yeah. So that leadership and things like that, you kind of look at him and think, wow. So no, I haven't. And do you know what I say? When I'm asked, I say, sorry, I can't do that because I'm too honest.
Perfect way to wrap that up then.
All right.
So just for our listeners, if they wanted to follow yourself, your work, or any of the work done at 1000 Trades Group or kind of the 1000 Businesses Group by the sound of it, where's the best place to follow you and kind of engage?
So I'm on all social media platforms. You can find me on LinkedIn and things like that. You want to connect with me. It's 30,000 connections, 30-odd thousand people follow me and things like that. I'm on X, they still call it Twitter, and on various different platforms, Facebook and stuff like that. Just reach out. I'll connect with anybody and talk to anybody, as you know that. And I'll always respond to people. But I always thank people for taking interest in making an effort to do that. And I will return that favour and privilege to other people.
Awesome, Paul. Well, I can certainly vouch for that. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you for appearing on the DME podcast. And I think you're a fascinating person. We can probably speak for many, many hours on many, many subjects.
It's a pleasure. And thank you. And I really appreciate your time.
Okay. Until next time. Thank you.